You're listening to Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. This particular episode is really relevant to what's going on in the world right now, and it's relevant to many of you listening. This episode is about how to stop fear and worry. So if you've gotten into any fear and worry in the past week, make sure that you listen to this episode and you share it with your friends and family. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. So this week is obviously in the title about fear and worry. Before I get into that, you know that we've had ENCORE episodes for probably 5 or 6 weeks now. I don't even know how long. But you've heard somewhere, I think here in the podcast, my director of operations may be doing some intros for me, is that I was in the hospital. Something completely unexpected. I went into heart failure, and my cardiologist has no idea why. So I'm recovering, and I'm doing better each and every day. My cardiologist is like looking at all my testing, which, by the way, I was in the hospital for like 3 days, did all the heart testing, stress test, echocardiograms, everything they could do to me. $58,000. Thankfully I have health insurance, but the cardiologist is like, we don't know, and maybe you had some kind of virus in your heart. So anyway, I'm recovering. And to recap there, when I say I'm recovering very quickly, is I'm also using things that I've talked about here in the podcast. I'm using self-hypnosis daily, 3 times a day, and that's one of the earlier episodes. I think episode number 5, the 5th one that I did, is how to use self-hypnosis for healing, because we can heal ourselves. And even more than that, I want to say something here. And I'll say it, and I know that every one of you are going to get this. But when you really, really get what I'm going to say, and it's one sentence, when you really get this, that's when life changes for you. And it's this one phrase: everything is mental. So when I was in the emergency room like 2 weeks ago, trust me when I tell you, I wasn't expecting the emergency, doctor to say, "Oh, by the way, you're in heart failure." And when he told me that, I didn't go into stress and worry and fear and all of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of like, what? Okay. But I'm healing very, very quickly. And I was in the hospital for 3 days after that. But I'm healing very quickly. And I attribute a lot of that to my mental disposition. And that is, I know that whatever thoughts that I hold, and by the way, I'll get into the subject, of the week in just a moment, fear and worry. But I know that wherever I hold my thinking and whatever my mental disposition is, whether it be fear and worry, or I'm positive, or I'm resolute, or I'm using my intent and my will, which I'll mention in just a moment, wherever I am in my mind, literally the cells in my body start communicating with each other based upon where I'm holding my thinking. Let me segue here a bit also. I have never in my life been in the hospital other than to visit people. So for me to be in the hospital was the first time in my life in 55 years. And I want to say that I consciously had no intention of at any level of being, any way ill or being in the hospital. But I also want to say having this experience has been a blessing for me. You probably have heard me say before that anything and everything that happens to me, where I work from, is it's a blessing. It's a blessing so that I might grow and I might evolve spiritually. So I've had a whole lot of time for introspection in the last 10 days and 2 weeks. And I just want to share that even though I've been away for a little bit, it's all been a blessing so that I may grow and I might evolve. And hopefully, I'm going to take some things away from all of this that I can even bring some experiences, to you here and share with you in the podcast. Okay, so a little bit about what I was talking about, and then just a moment we'll talk about the topic of the week. And by the way, I have never in my life been on medication ever. I don't even have Advil in the house. And I'm on medication right now, so it makes me a little bit loopy. So I might be hopping around a little bit. It affects my voice a little bit. But anyway, I'm just sharing with you why I might be hopping around a little bit is because I'm a little bit loopy because I'm on meds, plain and simple. So something else I want to share with you, a reminder for a lot of you, is that our body follows our mind. And when you want to heal, you have to start healing in your mind. And because of my body, your body's going to follow. And I know that you've heard me say before, a little recap here of stuff I've said before, is that the biggest mistake and why people don't achieve their goals is because they try to work from point A, from where they are in life, to point B. And when you work from point A, from where you are, literally that's where your attention, your attention is. And if that's where your attention is, that's where you are, and that's why you never get to point B. And when it comes to healing for me, I cannot work from, oh, I'm not fully functional yet. I'm not this, I'm not that. I had heart failure. I'm on medication, all this kind of stuff. Where I must hold my attention and where I must work from is being well at point B. So I just wanted to share that with you. So I'm working from point B, and I encourage you as a reminder, whatever you want to create in life, you must work from point B as if you're already there, not from point A. So anyway, I just share all this with you as recaps, kind of letting you know where I am, where I've been, what's going on, and who knows where it's all going to go. So we will see. I continue to jump around here a little bit. If somebody asked me my favorite quote, it would be by a guy named Eliphas Levi. He was an 1880s occultist, white magic. He worked in the light. But of all the quotes I've mentioned here in the podcast and I've heard over the years, there is one quote that's also appropriate to this week. And that quote is this. It's very simple and very short. And that quote that Eliphas said is that fear is the idleness of will. Fear is the idleness of will. And I'm using to heal, I'm using my intention. Many of you have probably heard of the power of intention. I'm using my intention and that I fully intend to be 100%. I'm using my intention, not attention, even though I'm having my attention on my intention. I'm using my intention and I'm using my will, W-I-L-L. And that's not will. That's not willpower. That is will. That is my life force. Let me give you an example here, and then I'm going to move on. Is using your will for whatever's going on in your life. Is that your will exists on many levels and multiple levels. But let me give you an example here of how I'm using my will and how you may be also, you can take from this and you can use your will to create, to keep you out of the fear and worry or things that you might be getting in. Now, let me give you an example here at two levels. Let's say that you want a new car and you say, well, I'm going to go do, which is a physical behavior, I'm going to go do X, Y, Z. Now, what you're doing is you're using your will, which is your thinking, which is your life force, to do the things that you want to do, not even recognizing that while you're doing what you're doing to create the outcome that you want, which is a new car, literally in conjunction with that, you're using your will, which is your life force, to literally drive the behavior. You're literally, without even recognizing it, using your will to create. So the doing is whatever you need to be doing to create the money, but it's the will behind. So I'm willing that, I'm using, when I say will, willing, I am willing that I be in perfect health very, very quickly. Okay, so I kind of went on a little bit of a rant there, but hopefully those are some recaps from you guys. And I'm going to be doing some episodes on these things that I'm talking about in the next couple of episodes. Because I've learned, that's why it's my favorite quote. I've learned over the years that when the doctor said, you're in heart failure, I know that my body, which is physical, is going to follow my mind. And it's going to follow my mind based upon my will. And if I'm using my will, then what is the point of getting into fear about heart failure? I mean, there have been millions of people that have been in heart failure. Many don't recover, many do recover. So this whole week obviously is about obviously worry and fear. And even though I'm not going to touch in depth this week on the use of will and intention, I just wanted to cover all that for you. But right now, what I want to do is I want to go back to a story that I know that I told here in one of the episodes. And let me share this story with you. It's a story that happened in my life probably 23, 24 years ago. And one of my clients was a Venezuelan oil man, very, very wealthy man, a billionaire. And he said, Jim, I want to set you up in business. And what happened is I brought on a couple of business partners. And one of the business partners, as we were putting this all together, became very greedy and very unscrupulous very quickly. And I called my brother-in-law, the shaman, and I explained to him what I saw happening. And he took me through a Socratic method. Now, I do want to point out that this oil man, he had agreed to fund a $3 million business proposal. And again, this was 23 years ago, and that's like 6 million now. And so I had one of the business partners, because I brought on 3 partners to handle different aspects of the business. And one of the partners became very, like I said, very greedy. And I called my brother-in-law and the shaman, and we were talking about it. And he says, well, Stephen is stealing. And so what does that mean to you? What's going to happen? And I went through this whole Socratic scenario of, well, if Stephen steals or we think he's stealing or whatever, eventually we got to the business is going to crash. And then what can happen is I could be on the hook for $3 million. And then my brother-in-law went even further and he said, well, you know what? It's pretty funny now that I look back. He goes, at the end of the day, you could be dead. The business could crash. You could be dead. And I always remember this. And he said, you know what? That's okay too. Meaning if I'm dead. He goes, that's okay too. And he said, as you can see, everything's going to be fine. Because see, I was in all this worry about all the money and what happens if this person steals or does this, or what if they corrupt the business, or what if this doesn't work, or whatever. And it was a couple of years later that his mentor, who was also a shaman, he said something to me. And finally, I know you're listening here going, Jim, get to it. But finally, I get to the entire foundation of this podcast. And when you can get your mind around this, and you can live your life from this place, everything changes. His mentor one time said to me, are you ready? Here it comes. Everything always has been, is now, and will always be fine. Everything always has been, is now, and will always be fine. And that's such a huge, huge chunk of information and a way to think that it's so hard for many of us to think that way. And I've learned to think that way. I've learned to be that way. Because when I was in the emergency room, and after I'd already gone through a CT scan, and the emergency doctor came back and said, you're going into heart failure. Literally, I was at peace. Why? Because I knew that no matter what happened, whether or not I went into even deeper heart failure or I healed, which I knew that I would, but I knew that no matter what happened, I knew that everything would be fine. Now, let me add a little caveat there. For me, I'm not afraid of death, which I'm going to do an episode on this pretty soon, is that most people are terrified of death. And that's all ego, Because guess what? Every one of you listening right now, none of you are exempt. You're going to kick the bucket and you're going to leave the planet. And I learned many years ago to embrace your death. And I've also learned that death is one of your greatest advisors. Because when you're staring death in the face, you begin to see the world in a different way and you let go of all the crap that you're holding on to that keeps you trapped in a lifetime. So I knew sitting there in the emergency room at the hospital when the doctor said, you're in heart failure, I was at peace because I knew that no matter what happens to me, guess what? There's no reason to be in fear. There's no reason to worry because I'm going to be fine. And guess what? Even if I leave the planet, I'm still going to be fine. So what's the purpose and what would be the point of wasting my energy going into fear and worry? So today, when I'm recording this, is March the 9th, 2020. And the U.S. stock market dropped 2,000 points today. I think it's the biggest drop in history or the second biggest drop or something like that. And despite all the insanity in the world and the people frickin' losing their minds on Facebook and Instagram and the fear mongering and, who knows what's going to happen. But the fear mongering about the coronavirus and the markets and then OPEC and all this kind of stuff, you know what? Stop and realize this. It's all just temporary and everything's going to be just fine. Now, if you look back to 2008, 9, 10, and 11, or whatever the years were, I don't even remember, when the markets came tumbling down and people lost so much money in the market and everything else, which all of that was due to corruption, by the way. Guess what? A few years later, it's fine. So whatever's happening, coronavirus, no coronavirus, the markets, any of this, it's all going to be fine. And what I'm telling you right now is stay out of the fear. Stay out of the worry because they're simply going to drown you. So what I'm suggesting that you do right now is that you start looking at your life because it's really how you are as a being. You've heard me say on other episodes before, and I know I'm putting a lot of, mishmash in this episode, but it's impossible for you to die. And physics demonstrates that. I mean, the law of the conservation of energy and the law of the conservation of matter by Einstein is currently you're in physical form and you're in non-physical form because you're consciousness. But look at the macro in life. And the micro is just what's right in front of you right now. What's on your plate right now? Coronavirus, the stock market, all the fear. And one of the most pressing issues, and I'm laughing here, I'm saying this cynically, is there's no toilet paper when you go to Costco, for crying out loud. I even read, which I'm not reading the news, but I even read somewhere today, I think it was on Instagram or somewhere, and trust me when I tell you, I turn a blind eye to a lot of that, is that China's out of toilet paper, so people are buying it up and putting it on eBay and selling it in China. I mean, go figure, entrepreneurialism at its best. But anyway, is most people are caught in what's right in front of them right now. And so what fear and worry is in front of you right now? And maybe you're not freaking out about coronavirus. Maybe you're not freaking out about the markets because it's going to serve no purpose to freak out. But let's put that aside. What fear and what worry do you get into? Right now today, and because I run several groups and many private groups for my coaching programs, and people are very positive in there. There's no fear allowed in the groups and nobody's posting anything fearful. But I have to log on to Facebook to get into my groups. And if, I look at my wall, I mean, for crying out loud, all this fear that's going on in front of people is crazy. And it's this post and this link and that link and social media and friends and families and husbands and wives and all this kind of stuff. So let's say that's in front of you right now. What does it serve you? And this is an ultimate test for a lot of you. What does it serve you? And how does it serve you to get into that fear and that worry? Something else that I want to point out is that the masses. I remember somebody saying to me one time many years ago, he said and he was pointing to his left, and he goes, when the herd and the masses run that way, I run the opposite direction. And I'm the same way. And run colloquially, is that the masses, they're the herd. You're not part of the herd because you're listening to my podcast. And I know you're not part of the herd because the herd's not listening to my podcast. They don't get it. But the herd is getting into so much fear. And this whole podcast, the theme is about actually transforming your life from the inside out, not the outside in. So, what I'm asking you right now is when it comes to worry and fear, how are you operating? Are you operating from peace on the inside, or are you operating from worry and fear on the outside? Now, very quickly, what is fear? Primarily, fear is brain-based for the most part. I'm not going to go into it here because I've gone into it in other episodes. But fear generally comes from the reptilian part of the brain, the oldest part of the brain, and that part of the brain is responsible for survival, and it's literally safety and survival based. And I'm going to share with you right now, if you're in the United States, literally, let's go to coronavirus for a moment. I think what are there like 500 people in the whole U.S. that have corona? The people that have died, they're elderly, but right now in front of you, for the most part, I'm guaranteeing you that you are in no immediate danger. And if you're in no immediate danger, then what's the point of going into the fear and the worry? So consider that. Okay? And I mean this about anything in life, not just corona, but generally speaking, so many people go into fear about, oh, are they going to like me? Are they going to judge me? Are they going to say something about me? And you know what? You're in no immediate fear or danger. It's simply your brain working on overload, the reptilian part of your brain, trying to actually help you survive. Okay, let's look at worry. What is worry? You know, so many people go into so much worry on a daily basis. You're about to discover here, worry is almost ridiculous because, well, let's go here first. What is worry? You go into worry when something in your future is unknown or unresolved. Basically, worry in your life is about a future date outcome and you don't know what the outcome is. Now, here's where it becomes ridiculous is, and that's, well, let me add here, let me just keep on going, is that, you know what? You don't know what's going to happen 1 minute from now. Consider that. I'm telling you the truth. You don't know what's going to happen 1 minute from right now. But are you worried about 1 minute from right now? No, you're not. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen when you go to the office tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen when you step out your front door tomorrow. But are you worried about stepping out your front door? I would say that most of you listening to this podcast all live in first world countries. No, you're not worried about it. Notice that worry, when you worry, it's because you're worrying about something that is unknown or unresolved, but your entire life, in truth, is unknown and unresolved. You're literally choosing to worry about things that don't matter because you don't even know. So hopefully that shows you how ridiculous it is for you to get into fear and worry. And also, I can use so many places in this particular episode. When you get into worry, because you're bioelectromagnetic, because your thoughts create for you, and science proves that, when you get into worry, you automatically draw to you that most times which you worry about. I don't know who it was. I was going to say, I think it was Deepak Chopra like 25 years ago, but it wasn't him. But the way that I look at my life is this, and this pertains to fear and worry, is that I have a magnet between my two ears, which is my brain, which is bioelectromagnetic, hence magnetic. But whatever I'm thinking about, I'm attracting back to myself. They call that the law of attraction. And if I am in fear and worry, guess what I'm pulling back to myself? So actually, many people go into fear and worry because it's brain-based, it's a survival mechanism, when that survival mechanism is actually hurting them. So the best possible place that you can be is at peace because you cannot control anything. So hopefully you're starting to recognize that when you go into and you hold fear and worry, you are choosing. Let me be very clear. Let me say that again. When you go into fear and worry, you are choosing to hold in, well, to go into it and to hold on to that fear and worry. Now, the title of this episode is about how to stop fear and worry. I'm going to give you that in just a moment in the takeaway. Before I do, I want to point out that I've been doing, as you probably know, 2 podcasts every week for the past 9 months. I'm going to cut back to 1 podcast per week. I don't know, a month, maybe 2 months, maybe even 3. I don't know yet, because my main focus is actually just healing. And I'm working on myself every single day, and my attention is on me and healing. So we're going to cut back to Wednesdays only, starting next week, and we're going to have 1 brand new podcast per week. Okay, how to stop fear and worry. You know, it's interesting to me, and I'm not judging anybody because I've been in that category before, how quickly we forget things. So the first thing that I want to tell you to do is go over to jimfortin.com, my website, jimfortin.com, and I want you to download the Master Thought Formula. And the Master Thought Formula is a couple of simple steps. And the simple steps are, for example, when you worry, that is a thought. But in the Master Thought Formula, you learn that, you know what, you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. Now, in this episode, I've been saying, or I've alluded to, you're a worrier. No, you're not a worrier. You are a human being who has worrisome thoughts. So the way to stop fear and worry is to recognize that you're not fear and worry. You are the thinker of fear and worry and learning to move your attention. So go to jimfortin.com and download the Master Thought Formula. And then secondly, where I work from, which I said earlier, is that I work from everything always has been, is now, and will always be fine. No matter what happens to me, my physical body, Jim Fortin, no matter. Me, the totality of me, what I call the cosmic me, is always going to be fine. So why would I worry about the bag of skin that I walk around in? Okay, so let me share one more thing with you. If you're one of those people that are like, you know what, Jim, I get it all, but I'm just going to worry. Well, how about this? If you find it necessary to worry, what I want you to do is I want you to actually take your daily calendar, your planner, and I want you to block off 15 minutes. And I want you to worry your head off. I mean, I want you to pace the hallways and bite your fingernails and smoke cigarettes and binge eat and gorge food and drink a beer and everything else and worry for 15 minutes. I mean, if you're going to worry, do it right. Okay? I mean, do it well and do it right. Then what I want you to do is put all that away and go about your day, because that worry is going to serve no purpose for you. Okay, next episode. What I want to go into next episode is something I alluded to in this episode, is using your intention and your will to create for you. I also want to say thank you for your patience while I've been gone for, I don't know how long it is, 4 or 5 episodes or longer. Thank you so much again for your patience and for your compassion and for all the notes that I've gotten. And thank you for listening to the podcast, and thank you for sharing. And I promise you that I'm going to be bringing you a great many more episodes with great transformational content that you can use to transform your life. Okay, thanks for listening, and do what you can to make it a great day today. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. You know, if you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.